Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of How to Keep the Fights Clean and the Sex Dirty.
We're so glad you could join us, and today's exciting because it's our first interviewees.
And yeah, we want to give a warm welcome to Amber Lupton and Nathan Charles Otto. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. We're honored.
So yesterday we dove into how to keep the fights clean with before, and today we're going to be talking about how to keep the sex dirty before. And today we wanted to talk to you about mastering mini seductions. So this is all about, we don't want you to wait for the right time or to have a long on-ramp for creating, as my friend Tobin calls, sexy time. We want to be able to create a space that you're feeling that sexiness all the time so that when you do have an opportunity to come on board, so to speak, that it's an easy on-ramp. It's a short one. I grew up sometime in Seattle, and if you've ever been to the airport, it has a long, windy, circular on-ramp to get to the parking lot. That's not what you want. You want a short 100-yard, easy to access, ready to get hot and spicy and sexy with your partner. But we'll get in a little bit more about that distinction and a few others with Nathan Charles and Amber Lupton, but let's do a little bit of introduction of them first.
Take it away, honey.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a shift. If you saw yesterday's show, you knew that Raj and I were talking about one of our fights, as we name our fights, is I can't get a word in edgewise. So that's a real breakthrough for me to speak. Take it away.
It's not a breakthrough for her to speak. It's a breakthrough for me to say, take it away.
Take it away. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, he was interrupting me yesterday, and it was great. It was almost a little sexy, actually.
Oh, and just so you can see, we kind of like to sit, so we're kind of like...
Yeah, I'm sitting on his lap here. It looks like we're side by side, but I'm sitting on his lap here. Cozier conversation. Yep. So Nathan and Amber, we've actually been friends with them for quite some time and met them as friends first before they became a couple. But they've been a couple for 7 years and married for almost 2 now. But they're extraordinary human beings in so many different ways. They have worked with individuals and companies and couples. Nathan is a thought leader and an author and a consultant in a variety of topics. He built and sold 2 internet companies, one on recipes and one on art, so he's a multi-talented guy, and if I can tell a secret about him, he even worked in the circus when he was a teenager for a brief period.
And Nathan's one of those guys, he's like a living Wikipedia. He knows, not in a bad way, like he knows everything that would be fascinating about any topic. Like, why does the sun set?
So we knew that we could have him on the show and ask him about anything.
Anything, pretty much.
But most recently, he's been working on a project we're really excited about with Alex Allman, who's also going to be a speaker, interviewee on this show, and it's called How to Man. If you meet Nathan, he just holds this awesome presence of man and can really hold the container of woman, and he just does it so beautifully. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about his program. Maybe they can tell us a bit about that as well. And Amber, she is a change maker and author. She's a workshop facilitator. We had the blessing and benefit of getting to go to their workshop called Discipline of Love a few years ago. And she's worked internationally in the U.S. and all over the world on all sorts of topics for years, for over a decade. Together a few years ago, they wrote a book called Give Peace a Deadline, and they were promoting peace. And they had over, I think, like 5,000 organizations that jumped on board to say, yes, let's give peace a deadline, let's make this happen. And I was really impressed that they not only wrote that book, they wrote it in 2 weeks. It's pretty impressive. And as I mentioned, they also created the workshop, The Discipline of Love, which is just fantastic. We got so much out of that workshop.
Yeah, gosh. And it's one of the things that we learned in that workshop. These on-ramps is something that we did in New York in that session with them. I just wanted to say a little thing about Amber too. She's one of the most sweetest people that I have in my life, and I was saddened when they left Santa Barbara. I remember having a get-together with Amber, and she was teaching me about how to be sexy. She had this awesome kind of little snippet thing around like making sounds and numbers based on how you were holding yourself, and
she was giving him immediate feedback in real
feedback on
time.
sexiness. She's like, no, one.
Ooh.
So, Amber studied with David Data, and Nathan probably did as well. They're just so well versed in everything relationship. So we're super excited to have them here today.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. We're so excited to be with you, and look forward to hearing the content that you've developed, because we've been also students of yours over the years, and I respect you so much in the domain of relationship and keeping it sexy, keeping it real, skilled communication, so many domains, and we're just honored and delighted to be interviewed. So take it away.
Absolutely. You know, I forgot to mention that the first time we heard you speak on stage as a couple was at Evan Pagan and Annie Lala's Intimacy Intensive in Las Vegas a couple of years ago. And when you spoke, the piece that struck me the most, you were talking about the on-ramps and off-ramps to the sacred and the secular. And I mentioned before we want to create these, you know, short mini on-ramps so that you don't have this long, windy way. And we kind of took those ideas and modified them from the on-ramps and off-ramps that you were talking about. Can you share a little bit about what you said there?
Yeah, well, we were distinguishing our functional time throughout the day, which the majority of time we spend is spent in our duties, our obligations, our commitments. And then as a couple, we find that it's important to have set-apart sacred time. And usually to do that, we have to design a way to on-ramp to that, whether it's a fast on-ramp or whether it's sort of that spiral staircase that you talked about with Gabrielle. But we need to have a ritual around dropping our functional mindset. Okay, I'm putting all my commitments aside, and now I'm going to be completely present with my partner, my lover, and opening a space as adults where we could really do anything together. We can be playful together, we can be passionate together, we can have intellectual conversations, but we're not concerned about what are the functional duties that we have as a couple and as a family.
Yeah, it's so easy, even if you don't work together, you know, life can get into so much functional, as you say, or the secular, and it really is nice to bring some attention to that, to separate. I don't know, it was you or another couple that said, oh no, it was our friends Alec Milnick and Michael Sean Conaway. They said no business after, oh no, it was no business in bed, because sometimes they'd be in bed and maybe on their laptops, and so that was their rule, no business in bed. They get to business in bed, leave the business out of it.
Good.
Okay.
Great, so should we dive in and say a little bit more about mastering mini seductions?
Yes.
And then we'll hear from Amber and Nathan with some of their tips. And then don't forget that the whole reason we're doing this live is because we want to hear from you, your questions, your concerns, your comments, and even your great ideas for what you do to keep the sex dirty before.
Yeah, and you can either chat in the Google Hangout window, or when we become live, we'll do that in probably, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. We'll make the Join Google Hangout button live, and then you can join us in the Hangout. Until that point, you can enter comments into the web page that you're on now in the comments window, and we'll be seeing those real time.
Great. So one thing, as we were saying before, with mastering mini seductions is you want to create these really short on-ramps so that, you know, Raj and I were busy during the day, we're working, sometimes we're working really late hours, it can be tiring, and then it's time to get into bed and we kind of feel a million miles away from our sexy side.
and then you're asleep.
And then we're asleep. Yeah, that window can be short sometimes.
Not a very successful recipe for sexiness.
So we wanted to find some ways to really cultivate and create that space in the in-between, so to speak. So not waiting for the evenings or even those afternoon delights or when you're feeling like it's time for seduction, but how do you really nurture that space ongoingly? Because we've been together for almost a decade now, married for almost 7 years. And you know, it's not always as natural as it was in those first 6 months. It is something that you want to cultivate and nurture, just like you take care of your body with exercise, or take care of your car, or even your work. You want to bring some, I say if you bring just a little intention, attention, and action, you have to have the action, it can make the whole world of difference.
I want to say a little bit something about the before as it
Sure.
starts. Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen just for a moment so you can see this little graphic here. We've designed our content around different phases of Fights Clean and Sex Dirty so that you can kind of look at things in these 4 different time phases before, which is what we're talking about today, and that's why on-ramps, like it leads into sexy time, as our friend Tobin likes to call it. And then
I actually saw a Huffington Post article the other day that called it sexy time. So it's getting out there as a meme.
And then as it starts, what do you do as sexy time is starting? And then what do you do during? And then what do you do after? So
and the benefit of this is so you actually can apply things specifically to where the challenge is for you. We did a decade of research on relationship and workshops, and a lot of the content, it's might be vague or overarching or do it like this in general. And Raj and I really like to focus on very specific things that you can apply immediately. I remember telling Amber and Nathan about the hot and bothered backseat driver one, and the next time I saw them, I'm like, oh yeah. So little things that you can drop in and apply to exactly the period of challenge that you're experiencing.
And just so that you know why there's 2 circles here, one is for the Fights Clean, the heart with the halo on it, and one is for the Sex Dirty, the devil heart.
Be an angel when it comes to the arguments, be a devil when it comes to the bedroom.
Abby loves to say, save being
nasty for your sex life. That's where it belongs. That's right. That's right. So do you want to share a couple of your favorite mini seductions, then we can get into Amber and Nathan's brilliant ideas?
Sure. Yeah. So mini seductions, one of them that I'm going to give a little background of where this came from. A lot of the things that we come up with are a combination of what we studied, what we learned from other people, and then just what we found in our life that work.
And to throw in a good dosage of play, because we like to play and keep things lighter.
Yeah, and making all those things fun and playful and really applicable. So we were up in Sequim, which is in upstate Washington, in the Pacific Northwest, visiting Gabby's mom, and we were just busy with a lot of family things. We were up there for maybe a month or so, and we just weren't together, like, at all. And we were noticing we were getting further and further apart, and if we even touched each other, that would have been, something special. But we decided we're going to go out on a Sunday date for whatever remaining weekends we're up there. We're going to go on a 3-hour Sunday date. And our first date, we went out on a walk by the beautiful bay there, and do you remember how we started with she asked me what I would like in terms of being touched, and
he's sensitive, so I can't just grab him.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll tell you about the coaching on the ass grab in a moment. I had to get coaching.
Yeah, and sometimes either as a man or a woman, we're somehow expected to know what the other person wants, and because of that, we either can completely flub it up or we don't try at all. And we also think that, like, seduction has to be this big, fancy, elaborate thing. And so Gabby asked me, what would you feel that would be a seduction? And I asked her what she would think would be a seduction. So we both kind of thought on our own, and then we shared, and then we came up with our top 5 mini seductions. And one of them was just coming up from behind and giving a quick.
It's the neck. It's the neck. Just any time.
Gabby loves to kiss on the neck.
I could be cooking, just doing anything, in the normal, as you call it, secular, the functional. Kiss on the neck, pulls me out of that right away.
Totally. And Gabby loves her feet massaged, especially in this one place on her toe. And
so it could be we're watching a movie or something like that, and it could even be a dramatic movie, but he'll hold my toe, and I have this pressure point. If you press on it, I just melt.
She melts. And then, simple things like bringing her a cup of tea, or just giving her a compliment. Like, these are all little on-ramps to sexual intimacy. And if you're doing them throughout the day, then when it comes time to be more sexually intimate, it's easier. It's not like this jarring thing, like, what? Why are you touching me?
Well, Raj mentioned the Ask Grab, and I said I needed some coaching. That was one of them. We put down as the mini seduction. We often say a little Ask Grab goes a long way. But Raj had to correct me. He says, the grab isn't really doing it for me. I feel like I'm getting goosed, and I kind of jump as he did a moment ago.
She would come up behind me and she'd go, like that. And I would like.
It wasn't as sexy as I thought. I don't know if I was missing the mark.
It was like twice.
Double squeeze.
Yeah.
I actually realized it's because my mom used to do that to me. So I was thinking ass grab, but clearly it was not in a sexual way. It was just mom going like, hey, honey, like, you know, little love. So I had to learn it needs to be the ass caress, not the ass grab.
Or a firmer.
Or a firmer, yes.
Yeah.
So you might need to get some coaching, but ask your partner what would work for them. Like I had to learn when Raj is working, he doesn't want me to come behind him and give him a kiss on the neck when he's working. You know, he's focused. But for me, I love that. So it's important to ask your partner.
So what are some of the ones that you discovered for me?
Well, that for certain is a key one. Anything that actually has Raj feel taken care of and nurtured. So it may not seem sensual, but bringing food to him just instantly relaxes him and he feels loved. And for that is the access into the intimacy. So I'm saying, I'm caring about you, I'm thinking about you. He certainly likes compliments. We have a little joke. Raj has an amazing ass.
That's what you're going to. I didn't know if this was an X-rated show or not.
Well, it is about keeping the sex dirty. He was a cross-country skier at a national level, a soccer player. He's been an athlete all his life, and his butt is so round, and mine is so flat. So it's been a decade, and I'll still say to him, honey, have I ever told you what a great ass you have? As if it's the very first time.
Yeah.
And it always brings a smile to his face.
And speaking of asses, we'll give our friend Andrea Albright a little plug. Gabby's been doing her, what is it called, the bikini butt?
The 28-day bikini butt. I'm actually getting a butt.
She
it's
has
got
a butt.
some curve.
That's
it's
great.
coming after 44 years.
Yeah.
It's coming. So, Amber and Nathan, how about you? Do you have any of your favorite mini seductions that keep that space and energy alive between you beforehand?
Well, I noticed that Nathan does several things throughout the day that I enjoy. One is, after we got married, we moved into the same space, and so sometimes he'll just barge into my room unexpectedly and give me some love, just kind of dance routine for me in the room, and so we just keep it fun. Fun is a really big seduction for me. If I feel fun and happiness, then I'm available for passion, because it's playful, it's not too serious. And then we have just romantic sort of sexy moments thrown in. I could be in the kitchen, he could be preparing something. We know that all of my stepkids are out of the house or something, and I'll just rub up, or I just add these little sensual moments peppered into our day so that it just keeps it fun and light.
Yeah, anything fun and sexy or funny and sexy, it is really a nice, quick turn on for me. And also, when Amber, if she's tense and then she just relaxes and melts just on her own, I find that really, really sexy. If I can get her to do that, that's sexy too. But if we're having some kind of tense moment and then she's like, and then she's like, well, what if we, and she makes some kind of suggestion in that tone, a shift in tone to a more relaxed really relaxes me.
I'm so glad you mentioned play.
Mm-hmm.
You know how important play is to us. But yeah, tension is one of the lead causes of having that separation be present, and you just get so focused on your own experience. And laughter, we like to say humor heals. Laughter is just so freeing, and it's been proven to be even medically helpful for you. I know some cancer centers offer laughter yoga. So if it can help cure cancer, then what can it do for your sex life?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, go ahead. What's that, Nathan?
Yeah, just absolutely. I was just going to say, one of the great things about humor is it can be super quick. I mean, you can just offer, even in a fight, if you're keeping the fight clean, not to veer into the fight territory.
Totally fine.
But just to add just a little bit of humor or like almost like a pattern interrupt, to use a too much of a theoretical term, but it's really like you've got some rehearsed pattern of anger between you, and then instead of just saying that, you just stop and just say something stupid. And it's funny.
Yeah, yesterday we were talking about. Sorry, I was commenting for a minute.
We did I think what you're always going to say is we did the bad and right, the good and right, bad and wrong dance. So if you're interested in that one, go ahead and check out yesterday's episode. The recording is on the website. But that's one of our favorites, in the heat of it is, do your little I'm right, you're wrong dance. And although, of course, I did point out sarcasm is not funny.
That's what it was. Yeah, sarcasm.
Sarcasm is not funny.
Sarcasm is not funny. That's
it's
true.
Big difference.
Sarcasm.
Yeah.
Mini seduction is a kind of a firm touch on Amber. If I squeeze her, if I do it just right, or squeeze her arm in a firm grip that's not too hard but it's firm, she really likes that.
Yeah.
I want to hear what Amber has to say about that. I hear her. She's making her little noises there.
She's already melting.
Really hard, so I'm feeling very good at the moment.
Amber, your internet.
I'm just speechless for a moment because he just squeezed me really hard. Just appreciating that. So coming back, one thing that Nathan and I do generally every morning or close to every morning is we both have a morning journal or writing routine where we look at our individual sort of self-understandings or what we're discovering about life, and we share those. And so that emotional intimacy channel open for deeper physical intimacy. And that's a practice that really works for me, for that heart connection, which opens up a space for more connection.
Yeah, my aunt taught me years ago, my Auntie Mahima, she said, intimacy is into me you see. And so if you're not sharing yourself, then you don't have that level of intimacy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you as listeners, may be wondering is, how do we do this, right? How do we create these on-ramps to intimacy? We talked a little bit about it at the beginning, that we actually asked each other to come up with a list. So Gabby or Nathan or Amber, do you have anything to say about how do we advise couples out there that may not have any either facility with this or either just a little bit more clarity on a step-by-step, how do you develop these on-ramps to intimacy in the first place?
Well, I might start with a little bit of an interview process. Each person interviewing the other person of discovering, well, what makes you feel sexy throughout the day? Or what's a little thing I could do? Or what are the 3 or 4 things I do that shut off intimacy, like the goosing or some other touch, and eliminating what is sort of in the way to intimacy. But I would start with an interview process to find out what causes sexiness.
That's a great point of that there's not just what to put in, but what to remove. What is the fingernails on the chalkboard that, you could stop doing that and start doing something else. And Raj and I, we've made a list of our top 10 turn-ons and turn-offs so that you know what those are. And the goosing and that was one. Leave that off.
Yeah, and there's a refinement process, like Amber's saying, start with this interview process and create a little date around that, instead of watching TV, maybe take a half an hour and have fun with it, say, hey, you write down your top 5, I'll write down my top 5. After that, though, there's a refinement process. It's not okay, he likes to be touched on his ass, right? As you found, that Gabby needed a little refinement process. And don't be afraid to give constructive feedback. And you can bring a little humor to it. It's honey, that was good, but I almost shot through the roof. Can you do that a little more gently?
Yeah, well, one practice that I actually learned when I was a school teacher and giving feedback at the college level was to always tell people what you wanted, even if it was what you didn't want, just kind of translate it. So, if you don't like being goosed, rather than saying, don't squeeze me like that, because we are all about moving towards rather than away. So, yes, think about the things you don't like, but when you're languaging them, say, you know what I would love even more than when you squeeze like this is if you actually caressed me. That would be so much better. I would love that. because people want to lean in towards something, and if you're saying don't do this, it can inadvertently put in some tension or some defensiveness.
Gabby, I'd like to just build on that because I think that's a super important point. It's like the manner in which we communicate our desires is really, really important. And it's something that I'm actually pretty bad at and I'm trying to get better at. So it's definitely rather than saying what I don't want and what to stop doing and framing everything in a negative, critical way, take a breath and say, you know, even better if...
Even better if. That's a great tool.
Raj and I just created a formula for, we call it, for a wildly successful life, and it's holding the space of all is well, like there's nothing wrong here, it's just fine, and not fine, we don't like fine, it's just whole and complete the way it is, plus if you can hold that simultaneously with the paradox of even better if. You keep dancing between those two, it's all is well and even better if, and you're going to have a wildly successful life or a wildly successful sex life. And the other piece is just making it common and normal, you know, whether it's, you know, after you have sex talking about how that was, but just to be having it be a normal thing to be making requests, pointing out what you like and you don't like, so it's not that you never talk about it and all of a sudden you bring it up and you're like, why are they bringing that up right now, or it makes someone uncomfortable. To do it in baby steps so that till you get, you know, comfortable with it and keep turning up the heat a bit, you know, month by month, but just to make it a regular practice.
So one of the things that one of our viewers asked was, how do we make this more, this process more intimate, like the process of finding out what an on-ramp mini seduction would be. So we'll answer that in a second. I also just wanted to let you know that the Google Hangout button is now active. So please click on that so we can see you and even have some of you show up live on our show. And also love to hear your comments and questions. You can enter those either in the web page that you got a link for the show or in the Google Hangout in the chat window. Okay.
But before we go to the Q&A, Amber and Nathan, you know, we've been talking about these mini seductions, but any other ideas that you want to share with this group about this area of creating easy access to intimacy?
Yeah, this is a kind of a killer app that we discovered recently. We wanted to work through some issues, and so we hired a somatic therapist. Somatic just means in the body. And we learned something really important from her, actually a lot of things, but what I'm going to share now is she uses all these concrete metaphors like stuffed animals and a little ball for breathing and bouncy balls and little like rods you can use to whack a pillow and just all these tools that are always all these concrete metaphors of emotions. And we found that these concrete metaphors are really, really valuable when we're communicating as a couple. And so even if just taking common kitchen objects like a glass or a spoon and saying, okay, this happened and this is me and this is you and here's my feeling and it's a spoon and like out of the head and out of the abstract and making it super concrete is incredibly valuable. Like crazy how valuable it is. And we found that to be a real boost to intimacy all around, was making our feeling metaphors concrete.
Right, so I could even say, oh, I feel fear, and I'm letting this object represent fear. And then Nathan would take that fear out of the house. And so it's like, let's remove the fear from our relationship and just take it out of the house. And we physically remove it. Or, oh, we don't want victim, perpetrator, rescuer in our relationship, so we write that on a whiteboard on a triangle, and then we remove it from the room.
Nice.
And we're taking it out of our relationship.
So you actually just, you know, I love Nathan because he has these awesome expressions for things like, what did you call it? What metaphor? Physical?
Concrete metaphor.
Concrete metaphors. So a concrete metaphor makes something that's not concrete, like an emotion, and makes it an object, and then you can deal with it as an object. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and there's something about the mind or the emotions that it works. It sounds really childish, but once I got that out of the way and just let myself do it, I find things actually get worked out on a permanent way. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, you know, we could apply that. You know how we name our arguments? We like to name our arguments so we know when they come up again, it's not what's happening in the moment, but we're actually just playing out a pattern, like that I can't get a word in edgewise. But maybe we could create an object for each of those arguments now. So I like that.
Yeah, we actually went to Target and bought a bunch of stuffed animals to represent some of our stable metaphors.
Yes.
Oh, no way.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I love that.
And we use them to have conversations. And that also increases the sexiness and intimacy, because I notice the more all of my feelings are allowed in the room, the more sexy I feel. If I start shutting down from anger, fear, any whatever emotion, then I'm shutting down from some aspect of myself I'm not willing to share with Nathan. And that starts to slowly eke away at my sexuality.
Mm.
Right.
So
right.
just by allowing more space, inviting more of our full selves, the full energy up and down our bodies, brings that more into the bedroom instead of, sometimes I have habits of living at a more happy, superficial level, but I don't allow the space of acceptance for if negativity's in the room. And then, but the moment I allow for that, then I know as in our partnership we can move through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens up more energy in both of our bodies.
And that's what I meant when I was saying earlier about Nathan, the container he can hold, because, Osho says men are crazy, women are stupid. No, women are crazy, men are stupid. Got that switched up. And so when we have a lot of emotion, it's all over the place and it doesn't make sense. And, I know one couple, the man is always saying, he's like, that's not logical. I said, she's your woman. Don't expect it to be logical. Expect it to be emotional. And to be able to hold the container of all of that is so comforting and sexy. In many ways, it's almost like the squeeze in the same sense. It gives that same feeling of being held.
So I want to welcome Sarah onto the call. I'm just acknowledging that Sarah's joined us today. Thanks, Sarah, for being here today. What, Amber and Nathan, what is it like that's going on with kind of our human design such that if we are able to kind of, like Amber said, not pretend that either be in the pretend happy space and not allowing our emotions to come forth, and then handling the emotions like you did with these physical metaphor objects, what's happening that allows sexiness to emerge when you do that? Can you say?
Well, I'd love to just take that first. What I've discovered, because I'm so excited about this discovery, what I've discovered is any time I'm repressing emotion or withholding emotion from Amber, there's all kinds of reasons that I'll think that I'm doing that, if I even notice, first of all, that I'm doing that. But I've discovered there's only one valid reason, and that's I'm feeling ashamed about something. I might call it resentment, I might call it reluctance, I might call it something, but when I get to the bottom of it every time, I'm ashamed. And as soon as I see it and name it as shame, then I have the power, and it's not the shame anymore. And what it feels like, just reporting and also from wide reading, as soon as I stop giving the shame any power, let it be there, then the feeling underneath comes up, and it's usually a positive feeling, and it's usually a whole bunch of energy that then is available for intimacy, whether sexual, emotional, even intellectual intimacy, but especially sexual intimacy, because shame is like the absolute toxic kryptonite for sexual intimacy. And we all feel shame. Shame is normal. Shame hides because it shames itself. How many times do you want to admit, oh my God, nobody wants to admit they're feeling shame. It's shameful all on its own, and that's why I call it the cockroach of emotions, because it really hides out. But there's energy under there, and I just find I have to do consistent maintenance work in order to stay open and stay connected, because this sneaky emotion sneaks in.
Right. Yeah. It's like just kind of thinking of it in an image. It's like you're really kind of enclosed and kind of shut down, and then when you open up and are able to express these things either through the objects or just being able to bring some play or whatever the mechanism is that you can communicate something that you're not communicating, it allows you to open up sexually.
That's it.
Yeah.
Amber, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I thought that was brilliantly said.
Yeah. Nice.
Awesome. So we have a question from Jesse about shame. You want to?
Actually, it's me.
Okay.
From your thought.
From your thought.
Great. Hi, guys.
Hey.
So it's really interesting what you just said. about shame because, yes, recognizing it is step one, but the shame really prevents you from expressing it, and it's probably because you're worried about her reaction, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, what a great question, because that brings us to another tool of intimacy that we use, which we call framing, which is when it's hard to say something to Amber. What I've learned is if I can get her agreement and her understanding of what it is that I'm communicating before I actually communicate the thing, that creates enough safety that I can overcome whatever reluctance or shame I feel about communicating that. And I call it framing. So I might say, I've got something to tell you. I want you to just listen to me for at least 5 minutes. I know you're going to have your own feelings about that. I'm going to listen to those later. This is really hard for me to say, and so I'm just inviting your compassion. Do I have your compassion? Yes. Like, do you love me? Yes. Okay, can I have my 5 minutes now? Yes. And quite often, the framing takes longer than saying the thing.
Wow.
And the end is that's okay.
You know, that's perfect, because yesterday we were talking about context, creating a context and keeping the end in mind, and that's kind of what you're doing is you're introducing, this is the context of what I'm bringing to you, and creating that, again, the word container, context, the aim, so to speak, so that she knows what you need in advance and can relax. We were talking yesterday about it being switched, that often when a woman shares her feelings, you know, her man, being a wonderful guy, wants to fix it. And, you know, the woman just wants to have her feelings heard. So this is really awesome, creating that context, reframing. I like it.
Yeah, it also plays in... Go ahead, Nathan.
Thanks. Sorry. I was just going to say, with regard to the fixing thing, I find that really powerful because sometimes there is something to fix. And often Amber will say, there's nothing to fix, I just want to share my feelings. Or if she doesn't create that frame, I've learned, wow, is there something for me to fix here? I just ask her, and sometimes she's like, yeah, I need this fixed. Another time she's like, no, I don't need this fixed. Other times like, I don't need to do the fix it thing. But
other times it's hang the cape up on the wall. We don't need it right now.
Yeah.
Good. I was going to refer to another thing we were talking about yesterday in terms of context, that we talked about this imago dialogue that consists of mirroring, validating, and empathizing, and how you have the speaker and the listener, but then also the context or the space of the conversation.
The in-between.
The in-between. And so what you're saying here, Nathan, really resonates with that too. You're kind of framing the space of the conversation, allowing you to actually converse in a way that you're both kind of sorted out, like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, rather than just diving in and having it be this jarring thing. The other person doesn't know what you want. You're not clear how to respond. So, yeah great. Awesome.
So actually, can I jump in again with shame?
Please.
So you framed the situation, Nathan, and you said, hey, this is very hard for me, and I'm going to share this, and she's open to receive it. But usually the shame is kind of like depending on her approach, right, on how she's going to accept it. What if it's something that is completely against her values, or you share it and now she sees you differently, she judges you in a different way, she loves you, but it's kind of like, you know, this is crazy, dude.
Yeah, great question. So one of the parts of the frame would be, and I'm afraid you're going to see me differently, and that might be what it is, but it's more important for me to share this and accept that you might see me differently, and so I'm choosing to share it with you, and I am going to listen to your feelings, but, you know, really, and then I would create an even tighter frame. I'd say, you know, before you share your feelings about that, I would really love it if you just acknowledge what you heard. So it's really clear that I've communicated what it is that might change your view of me. I mean, that's a really big thing to communicate, right? And then once the communication is complete about whatever that thing is that I'm ashamed of, then I'm done. The shame essentially disappears. Like, it's got no reason to live anymore. It's been overridden in a sense, or I haven't lived according to it, which was a good idea. And then whatever Amber's response is, I have room for it because I've completed that communication.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have a shame animal, a stuffed animal?
We need one.
And we need one. We
Yeah.
might have to pick one from one of our stuffed animals here.
Yeah. Right past our computer here is our whole pile of stuffed animals, and I'm looking at them.
Yes.
I don't think any of them would represent shame yet.
No, well, we can get one. Actually, we have a snake that
Oh, good.
times we use as fear, and I think could also stand for shame.
A rubber snake.
Yes, a rubber snake.
Can we see one of them just
Yeah,
to
go get it.
bring some concreteness to the concrete
Yes.
Awesome.
We got to work through this, especially in our first year of marriage. It's in my room, but we can bring some of these. First year of marriage, there were moments of, wow, I don't really want to share this with you. I know I'm going to look really bad. I'm actually afraid to share this with you. I just invite your compassion to listen and be with me, and then we would share whatever came up. So we have some concrete metaphors. Here's one. This is our somatic family. This is Dad. This is the baby. Right now we're actually pregnant, so we have a baby on the way.
Yay.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And this sometimes is Mommy. Sometimes Daddy protects Mommy, and he takes the fear or the shame or whatever we're afraid of, and he throws it out of the house. So Nathan will take the snake of whatever we're afraid of and throw it outside the room or the house.
You
Or
know,
sometimes I'll protect Nathan from whatever is going on with me, and I'll take the snake and throw it out of the house.
There's one other thing I want to add about shame based on that earlier question, which is 90% of the time, the reaction that you're afraid of from your partner is not going to happen. Especially with a good frame, the partner's going to go, wow, that's sweet that you were afraid of that. I don't really have any problem with it, or I don't, you know. Like, you sucked your thumb until you were 8? Okay.
Right. And yet there were things in the first year of our marriage which were very much the example given of, you know, Nathan sharing something with me that it felt like it violated my values in that moment. But we were discussing this morning. It always brought more intimacy. There was always a sense of growth afterwards. If Nathan was courageous enough to, you know, bring that up, even if it violated one of my values, and it grew me as his partner. I got to see, oh, I can love him in this way. Oh, that's really difficult for me to hear. I acknowledge my feelings, but then as adults, we could have that conversation. I could hear him. And afterwards, it brought us a lot closer and deeper, and it grew both of us.
Well, it builds that trust.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful point there, Amber, because we often don't share things because we're afraid it's going to create distance, but it's the not sharing of things that creates the distance, and the courage that it takes to, like, go past that fear is huge, but ultimately it pays great dividends. Yafat, did we answer your question, or do you have a more that
It's
you want to?
interesting because I'm trying, you know, I'm looking back at my own experience, and there's stuff that I did with my partner that completely changed the way I look at him, and it's very difficult to look at him in a different way anymore. You know, and it's kind of like, probably shouldn't have done that because it's like we don't communicate anymore. So it's very interesting to, you know, like, okay, so we're talking about dirty sex. What if you have a weird, a weird sexual fetish, right? That your partner goes like, I will never do that, and I am like, it's insane that you want me to do that or that you want it done. You're gonna look completely different at your partner from that point on, right?
We have a awesome tool for this.
Can you show it to us? Is it a concrete metaphor?
I'm gonna get an animal for it. It's called the 3 No's of Naughty.
I forgot about that one.
It's really awesome because it creates some safety around sharing these kinds of things, and again, it kind of falls into the framing perspective that Nathan was introducing. You want to?
Sure, and it also just allows you it to be okay to bring something up and have it be okay that your partner's like, no way.
Right. It creates that space. It's fine to say that, and you don't look at them weird. It's just like, okay.
It's part of the intimacy.
Part of the
So
design,
the 3 No's of naughty. So there's the first no that's like, no, absolutely not. I can't even talk about that right now. I don't even want you to bring that subject up. Take that doll, that concrete metaphor out of the room.
Burn it.
Let's not talk about that. Then there's no, and that's like, not now, but you know, we could talk about it someday. And then there's no, and that's like, I'm interested, but I'm not there yet, so you need to try a little bit harder to convince me.
Yeah. So 3 no's of naughty.
The 3 no's of naughty.
I don't know if that would have helped you, Yafet, but...
And then you thought there's another great tool. It's actually a website, and it's called Mojo Upgrade, M-O-J-O Upgrade, Mojo Upgrade. And it's a website that you can go to, and they have all these different sexual fantasies listed, and you fill them out both separately, and then it will send you each other's scores of only the things that are the same. So you don't have to tell your partner all these things that you're not comfortable telling them. Now, if you don't want to put your email in or something like that, then you can just take the list yourself and check those off, and it takes a little bit more trust to share those things. But what I'm always looking for, yesterday we talked about the shared relationship vision. So you can have a shared sexual vision. So the way you create the shared relationship vision is, you go off on your own and say how you want the relationship to be ideally. And then you come together and you see where do those overlap, and it's not going to be 100%. There's going to be some things that are on your list that your partner is not going to want to share. And instead of focusing on what's not on there, you focus on, if we had all of these things that actually are shared, would that be enough? Would that be fully satisfying? And then once you have that strength and that satisfaction there, then you might even see, over time as those boundaries can expand.
So when you say the 3 no's of naughty, are you saying that you're going to move from one to the other, or you can just be stuck on the first one of like hell no? And
you never have to move at all. It's just a way of communicating, and just knowing that your partner knows that if they bring something up and you're not interested at all and you're even uncomfortable to talk about it, that it's okay for you to say that. For you to say it, and it's okay for them to hear it. They don't. It's like, when it comes to sex, there's probably 1,000,001 things that turn you on. So if there's one that doesn't work, it's like, fine. It's like if somebody cooks me a dinner and I'm like, actually, I don't really like coconut. It's not like, oh my God, she doesn't like coconut, what's going to happen? Although I don't like that he doesn't like basil. No, mint. He doesn't like mint. I like to put mint in everything. So it's a bit of in between, but there's so much that you do have in common that you can enjoy in your sex life. You don't have to worry about one particular thing. And hopefully if you have, a partner who wants you to be comfortable, that you'll take a more slow, gradual process to getting there rather than needing to kind of dive into the deep end of something that you're just not ready for.
Yeah, and it's just a tool to, like Nathan was saying earlier, that when we don't communicate things, especially things that have shame around, that it really closes down your sexual energy. This is just a tool that allows you to communicate things that you'd be uncomfortable communicating, and therefore allowing you to open up your sexual energy.
Another way to talk about this, and this actually gets a little bit into the how to keep the sex dirty after, we have a distinction, a tool called the Romp Recap. And, Raj and I, we mentioned before, the wildly successful life is holding all is well and even better if. And when we do coaching with businesses as well, and whenever we get off a call, before we get off, we always say, okay, how could this be even better if? On a scale of 1 to 10, how was it, and how could it be even better if? And then one day we said, why don't we actually apply that to our sex life and make talking about how was that as comfortable and as natural as we would about a coaching call or about what we had for dinner or what we thought about the movie. And so we have 3 categories that we score: intimacy, sexiness, and technique. And we're, of course, aiming for the 10s there.
I want to describe the triple-double to see if I understand it finally. Gabby's always like, let's shoot for a triple-double, let's shoot for a triple-double. I'm like,
what's a
okay,
triple-double?
let's shoot for a triple-double. And Finally, like, what's a triple-double?
That's true. He went on for weeks about, triple-double, triple-double.
So it's a basketball term. If you have double digits, and what are the 3 categories? Assists,
points, assists, and rebounds. If you score 10 or more across the board, that's called a triple-double.
So we're going for 10s in all of them?
Yeah, right? Triple-double. Yeah,
sex
triple-double, all of them. But the point of that, Yafet, is that it just makes talking about sex much more casual and comfortable and a regular thing. In fact, we do it when we go for a walk. You don't want to do it right after sex. That's the post-sex pause, or the post-orgasmic chill, we call it sometimes. But within an hour to 24 hours after, so it's just in the conversation. And then again, we mentioned earlier about moving towards versus away. And so instead of saying, I can't even look at you after you ask to do that, to say, you know, kind of be nice if we took some more baby steps and explored our fantasies, but, you know, on a slower on-ramp would be really great.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some things that, you know, I think there's I can't think of anything right now that is, you know, kosher to say on air that that I can bring up that will be like, yeah, that sounds normal in a person.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you a little secret here, okay? I was my high school sweetheart, okay? I was with him for 8 years, and I didn't know this when we started dating, but years into it, I found out that his father owned a chain of adult stores. Well, then our freshman year in college, his father died, and he inherited all of these stores. So my father jokingly called him my son-in-law, the porn king. We weren't married, but that's what he would call him. Anyways, my point is I know a lot about what people find sexy, and it is it is so wide and vast. So not that you need to say anything here, but whatever you think is crazy, I promise you there's a website for it, there's a group.
Oh, definitely.
Tons of people that are into that particular thing.
Yeah, have you seen Two Girls, One Cup?
Two Girls, One Cup?
Mm-hmm.
Cup.
What is this, a website or a sexual fantasy?
Do you mean like a mug?
Yes. So Two Girls, One Mug, One Cup. If you guys haven't seen it, it is so out there that it's a video. It's a YouTube video. I think it has been taken down since then. But it's basically so out there that the viral aspect of it was actually filming people's reaction to watching it.
Okay, well, you know, hey, there's even new things that I can find out about as well.
Nathan, Amber, you're laughing a lot over there. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
No, I've not seen this video. I did have someone tell me not to watch it.
Oh.
Okay, good. Okay, you've heard of it, not to watch it. Okay, good.
So your partner comes to you and goes like, "Hey, you want to do some Two Girls, One Cup kind of thing?" And Amber, you're probably going to be like,
"Well,
who did I marry?"
One thing you could say is, well, points for creativity and authenticity, and no. But what would be, let me look at what would be a very baby step in that direction. What is like a 1% of that home run for you that shows that, because the fact is, one of Raj and I, one of our wedding vows is I promise to care about your experience and happiness even when it conflicts with my own. And that includes sexually. So there might be things that he brings up that initially I'm like, no, and it doesn't mean that I need to, succumb to his will, but as his partner, I really care about his sexual experience. And I don't know if it was Annie Lala or Jennifer Russell or both of them, but they talked about the shame that a man feels. They have all this testosterone and impulses and almost no circumstances where it's actually a great thing. And so they're always in this feeling of suppression and shame. And the more you can heal that shame for them and love, I think they say your desires mean something good about you. And if you can hold that space for them and lean in towards that without, forcing yourself to do things you're not comfortable with, it can do a lot for your relationship. Amber, Nathan, anything you want to add about this?
Well, in my own experience, I just find that there's a balance between my no. I can definitely honor my no, and wow, that brings up a big stop in my body. And at the same time, being inquisitive about why is that important to you? What about that do you find erotic? What about that speaks to you? And so I find in relationship, oftentimes it's just real negotiation of, but being authentic. This is what's true for me and what it brings up in my body. And what need does that meet for you? What is fascinating about that? And then, looking at how can we design, some experience together that might actually work for both of us.
Yeah, the phrase I use for that, I created this mantra, inquiry cures judgment. Whenever I find myself being judgmental, get curious and start asking some questions. Well, what about that do you find attractive?
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool. We talked about yesterday a little bit, again, represencing context, important for a relationship, and how a context of like being right is not a powerful context for a relationship. So often if you get triggered and you are stuck on being right around being triggered, like that's disgusting or whatever. This inquiry cures judgment tool allows you to move out of being right and into curiosity, and therefore, again, being more open, like Nathan was saying.
I'd like to build on that.
Please.
Inquiry cures judgment. I find that that's a super powerful phrase. Like if listeners just take that away, then that's a really powerful relationship tool. There's another context tool that Amber and I use, which is we say, let's take this out of the domain of action. Say about
the domain of action.
Yeah. Take this. Let's take this conversation out of the domain of action, and then we know that we're not in a conversation for doing anything. But then we can be in a conversation for feelings and understanding, and how it is, and experience, and what happened in the past, and all that. And it just creates a safety where it's where you could take your kind of hell no and put it into a safe conversation.
Awesome. So great, all of this. We have 5 minutes here. I wanted to just spend a couple more minutes on the entry point. We've gone a little bit all over the map in a great way, and talk a little bit more about the sacred on-ramps, because you guys were so brilliant with that, and it really introduced us to the concept. And because we're talking about fights clean before, on-ramps to intimacy.
Sex dirty.
Sex dirty before, on-ramps to intimacy. And one of our on-ramps, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about from Amber and Nathan, is going for a walk to the beach at we're working all day, and just taking a walk together allows us to really drop out of this work world and doing, and just allow us to connect and be with each other. And when we have a consistent practice of that, and from Nathan and Amber, I learned that is a sacred on-ramp. Get you out of what they're calling the secular and into the sacred. That becoming a ritual or an on-ramp, really over time doing that, it really creates intimacy and an on-ramp to awesome sexual relationship.
Yeah, so just the real basics is to recognize what is sacred time and what is functional or secular time. So I think it starts with the sacred. So sacred time, of course, you could just start with the obvious, like going to a temple or a church. But also being in nature, which is the walk. Eating is actually sacred time. Intimacy time in the bedroom, alone, private time with your partner is sacred time, or even alone time with yourself that you've set aside. Anything reflective or contemplative, that's sacred time. And as soon as you start naming these activities as sacred, they start to gain more value as sacred activities, and it feeds that part of our soul that absolutely must be fed by sacred activities. Because we all already have sacred activities, but then naming and recognizing them in our primarily secular culture turns out to be really valuable.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Anything else on that, Amber?
Well, I just comment that we usually go on 2 to 3, break up the day on a little sunset walk together, and just sort of download whatever came up during the day. It's kind of that transition phase of what could we complete, what's left unsaid, how do we go into more of a relaxed evening together, and make sure that we're connected.
Yeah. And there was a question earlier on that I just want to wrap up with here, is like, how do you create these things with your partner? Sometimes we get a little mechanical and we're like, have a meeting and create a list, and like this. You can make any time that you're trying to figure out these on-ramps or these mini seductions, as we talked about earlier, you can make that a date. You can light candles. You can, you can just make it fun and romantic. You can
Ambiance man.
They call me ambiance man. More about that later. Even going out to dinner, you can say, hey, let's go have a dinner and talk about these mini seductions or on-ramps. So you can make any of these things fun and romantic, and it just allows you to kind of like get into your heart and out of the stress in your head.
Yeah, we actually do a 3-hour once a month. We do a 3-hour. We call it the Sundra Sunday Reset, and we just sit for 3 hours, no phones, no plans, and like, what's up? Is there anything that's happened in the last month that is still there with you? Anything that's bothering you? A while ago we got our car broken into and all of our computer equipment taken, and so in the reset I was like, you know, you never really kind of owned that that wasn't a good idea to leave the bags in the car, and that's kind of bothered me. Can you just clean that up? Or whatever it is, but if there's anything rattling on in your mind, that stuff, you know, you think it's swept under the rug, but eventually you got this big bulge that has you trip over it, and then there's no intimacy and no sexiness.
Mhm.
If there's no peace, there's no passion. No peace, no passion. No peace, no passion.
All right, everybody, we are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you very, very much, Amber and Nathan, and we're going to see you in Paris.
Yes, in a few
Yeah, can't wait to
days.
see you guys in a couple of days.
Yes.
It's love and adore you. Thank you so much for taking the time. We know you're leaving tomorrow, so we really appreciate it.